Hello and welcome back to my channel. It's my first time doing this format, so if you have any suggestions or feedback for me, please let me know in the comments down below. But now, how to goo. First off, let's clarify what goo actually is. Goo is a substance that can be created through goo barrels, goo grenades, and the goo gun. A goo block is about half the size of a player in the heavy class. What makes goo special is that it sticks to objects and does not fall to the ground due to gravity, unless it comes into contact with fire, which causes the goo to burn away in a few seconds. Besides that, goo can withstand quite a bit of damage, such as from explosive weapons and firearms. But more on that later. Additionally, goo remains intact for 1 minute and 30 seconds if not destroyed before it deteriorates. The reload time of the goo gun is approximately 2 seconds, allowing for quick placement of new goo blocks. In contrast, the reload time of the goo grenade is about 20 seconds, meaning a longer wait before another grenade can be thrown. Goo can be found on the maps in the goo barrels. When placed by throwing, it creates a wall consisting of 6x2 goo blocks. If the goo barrel is simply dropped, nothing happens. This wall has its weak point at the goo block, which is the third from the bottom left. If this block is destroyed, the entire wall collapses, or rather it flies apart. However, if another piece is shot, the goo wall only partially collapses or individual goo blocks fly off. The goo grenade obviously cannot be found on the maps, but can only be used by equipping it in the equipment menu. The goo grenade can be used by all three classes. When thrown, the goo grenade, like the goo barrel, creates a wall of goo, but this wall has dimensions of 4x2 goo blocks. This can be completely destroyed by shooting the second goo block from the bottom right. As with the goo barrel, only individual parts of the goo wall fly off when other goo blocks are destroyed. If the goo grenade is dropped, it still creates a goo wall, unlike the goo barrel. The goo gun is the special ability of the heavy class and thus the last known way for me to create goo. Unlike the goo barrel and the goo grenade, it does not create a direct wall, but places individual goo blocks. Therefore, it does not have a direct weak point like the goo grenade and the goo barrel. However, there is one exception. If a wall has been built with the goo gun, only the piece that touches the ground needs to be destroyed. This will also destroy the other goo blocks, but it will be significantly slower than with the goo grenade and the goo barrel. Goo is excellent for defending against attacks, as it withstands direct contact with the RPG-7, gas, smoke, explosive mines, the jamming grenade, and the anti-gravity cube. However, goo unfortunately does not withstand direct attacks with C4, frag grenades, the data converter, the smash storm, fire, or any shooting and melee weapons, whereby they need to land a few hits depending on the weapon to destroy the goo wall. If goo is placed behind a wall to double secure it, goo still does not survive C4 attacks or fire attacks if it was placed too close to the wall. However, this is different with frag grenades, where the first explosion did not cause any damage. The main application of goo can roughly be divided into 3 categories. 1. Defense. 2. Offense. And 3. Movement. The obvious one first. By setting up goo walls, you can protect yourself and your team from enemy fire. However, what you should pay attention to when placing them is that if you throw the goo grenade or the goo barrel against an object, or especially against a wall, the goo wall always builds up in a way that you are standing on the side. Only when you throw it on the ground does the goo wall form, protecting you frontally. However, if you throw a goo barrel or a goo grenade at the ceiling, a 1x2 goo wall is formed. With the goo gun, you can quickly and precisely make it difficult for the enemy to enter a room by blocking the windows, doors, and air vents with goo, for example. This tactic can, of course, also be used to trap someone. Alternatively, to buy yourself some time, you can also incorporate the cash box or the cash chute. By shooting a guardian turret with goo, you can quickly render it combat ineffective with little effort. Furthermore, with goo, you can render mines and C4 harmless by placing goo directly on them. This is best done with the goo gun, as it allows for the most precise placement, completely absorbing the damage from the detonation. Moreover, it's possible to further displace the placed dome shield with goo, which can be very helpful if you know how to hit it. Despite its primarily defensive nature, Goo also offers offensive aspects. For example, it's possible to knock enemies off zip lines when they are hit with Goo. When done at the right zip line, the enemies inevitably fall to their death. This tactic requires precision and timing, but it can be extremely effective. Additionally, the Goo Gun can be combined very effectively with the sledgehammer by immobilizing opponents with Goo in their place and then letting the sledgehammer finish the job. Since Goo has the ability to stick to objects, you can easily build yourself a staircase with Goo if, for example, the zip line at that spot has been destroyed to still access the building. This improvised Goo staircase can be a quick solution to overcome height differences and strategically position yourself. For the medium class, Goo is advantageous when you want to make use of the jump pad to leap over large gaps. With Goo, it's much easier to find a good angle for the jump pad, where you are not only catapulted upwards but also into the distance. This technique opens up new movement possibilities and allows you to quickly and efficiently navigate obstacles. However, with the Goo Gun, you can also bridge gaps, literally. This is done on a smaller scale than the jump pad, as a Goo bridge collapses when the 16th Goo block is placed. However, this can be prevented by placing a barricade on the 15th Goo block and then continuing to build from the barricade. This resets the maximum Goo stack counter, allowing you to build a stable Goo bridge. Additionally, with Goo, you can build yourself an elevation that can give you a significant advantage on certain maps like Las Vegas. By cleverly placing Goo blocks, it's possible to create an improvised platform or elevated position from which you can oversee the battlefield and surprise enemies. This video is now over, but before you leave, it would really help me if you could subscribe to my channel and like this video. I've also created a Discord server, which is linked in my profile. Later, when I earn money with YouTube or get partnerships with brands, I want to host the finals tournaments on my Discord server where winners can earn some cool prizes. So if you don't want to miss out, be sure to check it out. Thank you for watching, and until next time.